Welcome to your standing appointment with Dr. Taylor Burrows. Today we're by the ocean and it's a brand new spot I've never found before. So this is a first for you and for me. Now, if you're new to my channel, please hit subscribe so that you'll get notifications of all my new videos. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can subscribe to my newsletter, and the link will be below this video, as well as sign up for my website or sessions. I do coaching and counseling sessions. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm your expert in mental health and relationships, but I do most of my work online. So feel free to reach out, and I'll try to help as best I can. So today I had put out a question on Twitter and asked people what they wanted to know from me and what kind of questions they had. And one gentleman wrote back and asked me to talk about how he can lead a young woman in the workplace. So he didn't give me too much information, and I asked whether it was specific to sexual harassment or just in general how to manage a young lady. And he wasn't really clear, so I want to kind of touch on both of those today. It is an interesting topic. Workplace conflict and relationship dynamics is a very hot topic right now. It's something I do a lot. I do a lot of corporate consultations. I have a program right now on psychological safety and positive organizational culture, which is a big success. I also have a sexual harassment awareness and prevention training program, and it's basically like a how not to get into a scenario where you'd be accused of sexual harassment. So it's quite geared towards the prevention side, but men are actually quite welcome to the content versus, some of the more traditional content being quite focused on women's advocacy. It's not that it's not, but it's from a different perspective. And so I want to touch on that a little bit, especially if it's a young woman in the workplace. She may be coming from a perspective that's very feminist. She could be coming from a perspective that's very different than that, because things are starting to shift. So the most important thing to do is to know your staff, know your employees, know your subordinates, whoever you're supervising or managing. It's really important to get to know them. And so that's part of the psychological safety as well, is to really engage with the people that you work with, because we're at work, or not me anymore, but most people are at work in the office the majority of their lives, and they spend a lot of hours there. So if you don't know the people, if you're not connected to the people, and you're not cultivating any kind of positive relationship with them, then it can be very uncomfortable, and it can be corrupt with a lot of negative, bad energy where things are misinterpreted, people aren't understood, and that's where problems really arise, is miscommunication, like with all other relationships as well. So get to know the people that you work with, especially the people that you're trying to supervise, because leadership is all about not necessarily just telling people what to do, but about bringing the best out in people. So you have to know what you're dealing with in order to know how to bring the best out of them. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How to maximize those, and how to compartmentalize the weaknesses in a way that you can leverage the strengths, pull back on the weaknesses, but maybe allocate certain roles or responsibilities according to what they are good and what they are not good at. And just personality-wise, it's a big factor in workplace relationships, is knowing how to blend various types of personalities and cultures. So the first thing that you have to do is find out from her what her interests are, what's important to her, what her priorities are, and just to get to know her a little bit better in regards to what she's looking for from you. I would guess women are generally more sensitive. I'm not saying they are sensitive, and maybe she's not in particular because of her personality. But when you're leading women, you don't want to be very harsh with criticism. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be direct or honest, but differently than men, women require a more, not necessarily gentle, but a more mindful touch. And I don't mean physical. So make sure that you're able to be encouraging and supportive when you're giving feedback, rather than it being like a list of this is what you did wrong. Make sure that you highlight the strengths, and this really goes for men or women. but especially for a young woman who could be very insecure and tentative and unsure about how to express herself, and you don't want to shut that process down for her. So the communication pyramid, it goes from broadest, it's actually not a pyramid, it's a funnel, so it's the other way around. It goes from the broadest, what can facilitate the broadest communication and the broadest conversation, to the more specific tip at the end. So if you think about the funnel this way, the first thing is to basically just invite more information and to ask open-ended questions, to clarify, to encourage, to express empathy, to listen, all of those active and assertive listening skills. And then as you narrow down towards the end, you're going to get more critical and instructive. So you don't want to invert the funnel into a pyramid, basically. And a lot of people tend to do that, and that's how mistakes happen and people get triggered and upset and conflict arises. So that would be one of my suggestions in regards to just general communication style. But like I said, the first things first is you've got to get to know her personality. So offering opportunity to have appropriate conversations. You definitely don't want to breach any boundaries of like making it feel like a personal friendship, right? And so that's when the sexual harassment piece it's always in play, really. But you want to be very cautious about your boundaries and be very clear about the intention of any kind of communication. Make sure doors are open when you can, especially in the beginning. And if it's never needed to close a door, if it's not a private conversation, then you don't have to. But that's what I would encourage, is to just have the door open, to have the conversation around other people, unless it's confidential. Then you sort of have to make sure that she's comfortable with that. Women tend to not be very direct with what they think and how they feel. Obviously, there's a lot of sub-communication and body language that you should be able to pick up on if you're at the management level. There should be training in place for you to do that anyway. But regardless, let's just assume that this girl is not saying what she's thinking or feeling, and kind of maybe assuming that you should be able to read her mind. So ask questions. Ask her or anybody else to repeat back to you what she heard you say. I do that with clients across the board, because especially if someone's experiencing anxiety or any kind of stress, they're basically going to be preoccupied mentally and not listening properly to what you have to say, and they could be misattributing what you say to what they think you're saying, and it's inaccurate anyway. So make sure you ask her to repeat back and summarize what you've said when you're instructing her, giving her feedback. But also just be very clear that this is a professional relationship. You want, tell her you want her to let you know if she ever feels uncomfortable. You want to make sure that she knows that you respect her and respect the boundaries of your workplace or your relationship, but that you may have to give her some feedback sometimes that maybe is uncomfortable. So you want her to be honest with you about how she feels or her opinions. And that will help sort of open the door for that level of communication and honesty going forward. If there's ever anything in the gray area, hopefully then she would feel comfortable to bring it up to you. And go over the policy with her. I think that's also important across the board with companies, but especially with new people or people maybe you don't know if she knows the policy. So you need to be familiar with the policy first, and then sort of, I just wanted to go over this policy with you so that you know if you ever have any issues and you don't feel like you can come talk to me, then this is what we do in the company. And if you don't feel comfortable doing any of those things, then feel free to go to this, level of escalation outside of the company, or maybe there's a counseling service or something like that. So I would say review those policies with her, invite uncomfortable conversation, tell her you want feedback from her if ever, and then reassure her that you're respecting her as a colleague, and if she ever has an issue, to bring it up with you directly. So without any more information, that's pretty much all I can tell you right now without getting more specific, but it's something that I am very interested in, and I do want to have sort of like at least 50% of my business and what I do being corporate related, whether it's online web-based courses or face-to-face in-person facilitation of courses, and also just the employee support one-on-one. And so that's easy to do online. And I've been going into companies as well. So a great way to promote the mental health and healthy relationships between men and women at the workplace, because it's at least probably about 60% of our time, if not more, is spent at work, depending on what kind of work you do. So we absolutely need to prioritize the healthy communication and healthy relationships at work. So I'm happy for that question, and hopefully we'll get to more on that topic. So just don't forget, if you need my advice, more personalized and direct and customized to a particular issue, or whether it's supervision, whether it's counseling, coaching, or consultation, I'm, one click of a button away from you. So it's very easy. I have the link down in the notes, and you can just go there and request my services. So hope to speak to you soon if you need my help, and you'll see me soon in the next video. Maybe we'll be here again. I really like it. What do you think? Give me a thumbs up if you like it, or leave a little note. Ciao.